Welcome to the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. I'm your host, Kim Piazza. Today, we're showing you a recap of Season 1, just in case you missed it the first time around, right now on the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. Our first local brewer is Buterus Village Brewhouse in Hamburg, where Jimmy and his team are perfecting the art of small batch brewing and serving up some of the area's best brick oven craft pizza.
So back in 2006, I had an opportunity to open a pizzeria, which we ran successfully for 10 years. And in 2015, there was an opportunity, and we went from a takeout delivery pizzeria to a full-service restaurant in 2015. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was given permission by the State Liquor Authority to brew beer, and we've been brewing beer since 2020. So one of the first beers we brewed when we came on in 2020 was a pandemic porter. It's a porter with raspberry mixed in with it, very nice, easy drinking porter. Another one, and one of my favorite, is a light lager. We call it America. So we're a craft beer. We only serve craft beer in-house here, no domestics. So we wanted to create a beer that anybody could walk in and off the street, and because we don't have one of their domestic beers that they like, we have something that they will be able to drink. So we created America. It's a light lager, easy drinking, crisp, clear. You know, we move on to the Pride and Punish. Pride and Punish is a traditional IPA. It's got some more of a piney taste than a flowery taste. It is an award-winning IPA that won an award some years ago on a home brewer circuit. The Hef is actually an amazing Hefeweizen beer. It's got a real banana front with some clove in the finish there. Very traditional. We also brew our homemade root beer, which every kid loves to come and have a beer with dad, so having a root beer on tap is always a pleasure. And then one of our other excellent IPAs is Kickstart Your Hops. This is a hazy IPA that is florally and rich in drinking. We just started a series called Land of the Free, and every few months we're going to find an American-style beer to brew, and so we'll change it up. We'll have a Kentucky Common, we'll have a California Common, and other American-style beers, pre-Prohibition, that we could brew and just pay homage to, the land of the free. So we have a Spike Nano brewery. It's a one-barrel system. We could brew one batch of beer at a time. We have 6 fermenters, so we can ferment up to 6 at one time. It's enough beer to supply the restaurant with a little extra if we want to, sample it out to other restaurants or other bars out there. But for the most part, it's a beginning stages of a brew house, if you will. If you've ever been overseas, especially in Germany, every pub you walk into brews their own beer. It's not like here where you got, all these main core beers that everybody tries. You walk into a bar in Germany and you're gonna get something different in every bar because they all brew their own. So our one barrel system is equivalent to what pubs do in other countries. Always looking to expand, and we're always looking to grow. We've been brewing for about 2 years now, almost 3 years, and the next step is a bigger system. Right now we're a one barrel batch. We would love to get into a 20 barrel system, do a full production thing, and that's kind of where we're driving the ship to.
Back in 1986, the race for mayor of Lajitas, Texas, was between incumbent Mayor Tommy Steele, a local ranch dog named Buster, a trading post wooden Indian, and a beer-drinking goat named Clay Henry. The beer-drinking goat won the election in a total landslide.
Welcome back to the Consumers Beverage Beer Show. Now we'll sit down with local beer historian John Ice, whose collection of early advertising memorabilia dates back to the turn of the last century.
Breweries didn't really advertise in the early days. The actual advertising didn't really get going until like about 1890, where all the kinds of things that we as brewery collectors collect today, the beer trays and the signs and all that sort of thing. And even then they were pretty simple back in the 1890s. You got into 1900 before they really started big time producing, where they thought that the other breweries are doing it, we have to do it. So it became big at that point in time. Then it was ended, of course, Prohibition. So after Prohibition in 1933, the breweries opened up again, and then people collect the stuff from that period in time. Back before the Prohibition, all the advertising for the breweries was done in a style called lithograph. And in fact, all pictures and advertising, everything was basically done with a lithograph system, which took each individual color and printed it, usually using like a stone that it had been carved into, onto the paper, then another color and different, to match them down to make these, what I think are just beautiful trays. And that's the pictures, the lithographs do a phenomenal job of making these things look really classy and alive. Whether it's brewery things that you collect or whatever it was from those periods of time, that style, that idea. And the other stuff that they did was basically hand done, where they painted everything by hand. One of the breweries in Buffalo was the Iroquois Brewery, which actually started around 1830, but originally when they incorporated and became the Iroquois Brewery was around 1880. And when they started advertising, they wanted to display a Native American. And for whatever reason, I guess it was everyone did it back then, there was what they called the European style of Native American, that picture of a head. And it was like a European, a person that was from Europe with a headdress on. So they decided to change and purport or portray an actual person who looked like a Native American as far as the head on the Iroquois advertisements. And a gentleman, an artist by the name of Nick Schwab, who happened to be the nephew of the mayor of Buffalo during Prohibition, Frank Schwab, Francis X. Schwab, his nephew, and was a very good artist. And he provided the new Iroquois, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Anybody who lives in Buffalo has seen the new style of Iroquois Native American head, which was very, very much looked like you might expect a Native American to appear. I don't think the Iroquois actually wore those kind of headdresses that they use, but nevertheless, he did end up doing all the advertising for Iroquois Brewery, and all the billboards around that you see and everything, or you saw at that time. That was all his work, and a lot of the other advertising was his work. So it was quite something, and that was the reason everything changed. But he always portrayed the Native American as a very noble individual. They're very careful about that in Iroquois' days until the end, when it was sold to another company. And then they changed a few things in the way they advertised it. But originally, he and the brewery owners were very careful to have a lot of attention on the fact that it was a noble individual they were looking at and talking about.
Not only is there an incredible selection of craft beer available today, but cocktail fans are enjoying a surge in the popularity of craft distilleries as well. For more, here's Kevin Thomas from Western Reserve Distillers.
Hey there, Buffalo. Welcome to the Western Reserve Distillers Cocktail Corner. Right now in New York, we have our 4-year bourbon, which is going to be a 70% corn, 15% wheat, 15% rye mash bill. We distill it up a little bit higher, so just short of that 160 proof. It's been aged for a little over 4 years in newly charred American oak. Delicious bourbon, good everyday product, great for making cocktails. Got a little bit of that spice in there, but it's also a good sipper. It's a good sipper at night. We have our Oloroso Sherry finished bourbon, which is just this guy actually finished in Spanish Oloroso Sherry casks. 94 points at this year's Beverage Testing Institute. Actually one of the top bourbons in the country this year. And then we've also got our Caribbean cask rye, which unlike a lot of the other Caribbean cask ryes is only going to be a 51% rye, 49% hard red winter wheat. A little bit softer, again 4 to 5 year product. It's going to be aged in a Caribbean cask between 10 to 12 months. So it's got a beautiful notes of the Caribbean, and then also got that good backbone of the American whiskey in there. This is a Reposado. You notice it has a little bit of a kind of a dark amber color to it. So really what we do first is we do the fermentation of that organic agave. It comes off the still and looks just like water, a little bit higher proof than water, but we let it sit for about 45 days or so just to kind of have it rest, let the flavors meld, and also let some of the oils kind of settle. And then what we do is we actually take our used bourbon barrels after we freshly dump them, we fill them with basically that clear Blanco, and then after about 10 to 12 months, we'll harvest those barrels, and that's really what kind of makes it a reposado. It means rested in Spanish. So it has to be less than a year, it has to be more than basically 60 days. We like it a little bit closer towards that 12-year mark. Gives it a little bit more of kind of the caramel and some of the sweet notes of the bourbon, married with the delicious flavor of the agave plant.
Bourbon is always the best seller. So once we were able to get bourbon out there, that has become the best seller. However, I will say we now have agave spirits, and our Reposado agave has taken off, and it's quickly gaining on our bourbon, quickly gaining in popularity. Both our Reposado and Añejo are actually aged in our bourbon barrels. So our Reposado sits about 10 months in our bourbon barrels. Our Añejo is at about 14 months. So they both have a really nice finish on them. The Añejo starts to pick up, it sits just long enough, it starts getting some of the bourbon caramely notes, some of the oak flavors. So over a block of ice, fresh squeeze of lime, it sips like a great bourbon. If we were making it in one of the 5 states in Mexico, we would be able to call it tequila. However, we make it in Lakewood, Ohio, so we must call it agave spirits. It is made from 100% organic Blue Weber agave, and we work with an organic farming co-op out of Jalisco, Mexico. So because it is done in the United States, we cannot legally call it tequila, we have to call it an agave spirit.
We'll be right back with more of the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. But first, here's another fun fact about beer that you might not have known.
The world's most expensive beer is a bottle of Allsop's Arctic Ale, brewed in 1852 for an Arctic expedition led by Admiral Edward Belcher. The explorers needed a strong brew to withstand the freezing climate, and although it's no longer drinkable due to its age, it sold at auction for over $500,000.
Welcome back to the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. Up next, we visit again with local beer historian John Ice, who can tell us more about some of the earliest breweries in Western New York.
I have always been interested in Buffalo's brewing history, which is a slice of Buffalo's history. So you can learn a lot about the Niagara frontier in Buffalo just by going through that slice of history that involves brewing, because it was such a large part of our history. I think there were two main causes of this, and one was having the canal and the Great Lakes here. All the grain that was coming from out west came to Buffalo, and as you see from the terminals and the storing facilities in Buffalo that still exist today, that a large portion of that grain was used for brewing here. And the second reason was, why would you sell it? Well, there must have been people here that liked to drink beer, and so many Alsatian and Germanic people settled in this area, and they were brought up on drinking beer. Brewing on the Niagara frontier basically started in Batavia, and when I talk about brewing, I'm talking about commercial brewing. And there was a brewery in Batavia starting in 1810. And then followed was another brewery that started in Black Rock in 1811, and that was Joseph Webb's brewery. And the unfortunate part for Joseph Webb was he started his brewery a year before the British came and burnt Black Rock down and Buffalo down, so obviously his brewery was destroyed then, and he actually petitioned the government, his family petitioned the government of the United States for reimbursement, and it never came through, but he gave it a shot. First brewery in Buffalo was by a gentleman by the name of Tunnicliffe, Thomas Tunnicliffe, who started sometime prior, maybe right around 1816, and it was right on Washington Street. Just a couple of doors down from Exchange in Washington, kind of north of there. And he was first, and then it continued along with more and more breweries picking up as the demand for beer kept picking up in Buffalo. And we ended up with about 270 different commercial brewing operations in Buffalo through its history. And it actually was only at 90 different locations, but there were that many different brewing operations, companies that ran breweries. The largest year I could find was Erie County in 1867, had 58 breweries in operation at that time. That's a pretty good number. Now some of those were small, parts of taverns, kind of brew pub idea back then. Some of them were quite large, like Mangus Beck's Brewery. And he produced the most beer in Buffalo back in 1867. This continued through, and we kept consolidating breweries in the 1880s, and they went to selling stock in the breweries, that sort of thing, and the number of breweries decreased greatly because of the same thing, a consolidation. The last breweries to close in Buffalo was Iroquois Brewery, which I'm sure everybody remembers, from 1971, and then the last brewery to close in Buffalo was a Simon Pure Brewery, which closed in 72. And then we had nothing for a very long period of time. And then in 1989, a gentleman decided he was going to try something new, and he actually built and opened and operated the first brew pub in New York State, and that was in 89. And that's the brew pub that's still in operation today on Transit and Broadway, the Buffalo Brew Pub.
What better way to enjoy a local brew than with a fine cigar? The Tinderbox in Williamsville is the go-to cigar shop for beginners and connoisseurs alike. Here's Jim Dvorak to tell us a little more about the Tinderbox.
Back in 1995, my father felt there was a need for a premium cigar shop in Western New York. He had a job that traveled all through the U.S., and there was really nothing in Western New York. He retired from his day job, and we opened the business. We feel we got one of Western New York's largest selection. We also felt the need for that, in that when we went to other cities and stuff, the selection was definitely a lot larger than anything we had seen in Western New York, and we wanted to be that premium selection. There's three main growing regions cigars come from: Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, and Honduras. back in '95, most of the cigars came from the Dominican, and it seems that as people's tastes, evolved, Nicaraguan tobacco became more sought after just because it's a little more complex, a little more character to it, where Dominican cigars tend to be the milder ones on the market, which are good for, occasional smokers or new cigar smokers. Almost in the beginning, we were approached by Davidoff to be a white label dealer. We're exclusive to Western New York, and actually we're exclusive pretty much to the Niagara region. The closest store is Syracuse, or you actually got to leave the state and hit up Pittsburgh. So we're an exclusive Davidoff retailer, which is a high-end cigar, and quite an honor to carry. We do get usually a large selection of limited cigars. And they, again, tend to come around the holidays, Father's Day, Christmas. So we have one of the largest selection of rare cigars, whether it's in the Fuente, Opus X, Oliva, even rare Cohibas and Monte Cristos. I would say not only next to one of the largest cigar selections in Western New York, are accessories. We feature at least 3 different manufacturers of lighters, which are lifetime warranty lighters, large selection of humidors, leather carrying cases, travel humidors, and again, other accessories, whether it's the Bovita humidifiers, digital hydrometers, and quite a knowledgeable staff to help you. Our lounge is a public lounge. The only rule per se is that you do have to purchase the cigar from us to use our lounge. We have some of the more comfortable lounge chairs in Western New York. Our chairs are from Dream Seat, which you'll find in a lot of professional sports locker rooms. Quite comfortable chairs. We got bar seating too. We just installed a new HVAC system that is absolutely wonderful. Probably the best in Western New York. So it really does help minimize the smoking in the store. Just like everybody else is doing, we do have what's called a Connoisseurs Club. It's a loyalty program. You get a point for every purchase, and eventually when you get to a certain dollar amount, you start getting $5 coupons, if you will, which will be off your total purchase. We have quite a large selection of pipe tobacco, whether it's aromatic and some English blends. Our pipe selection, we try to keep up on our pipe selection. At times it is quite large, especially around the holidays. We try to thicken up with pipes. And again, those accessories, whether it's pipe lighters, cleaners, carrying cases for pipes. We try to feature several in-store events. They usually happen a lot more during the summer because of the sales reps or the cigar celebrities traveling more so during the summer. But we try to feature large events at least once a month. Those events will include buying events. Swag has gotten quite popular with the manufacturers, so usually not only are there gratis cigars involved with a purchase, there's usually very nice items, whether it's lighters, humidors, or large raffle prizes.
There is an actual scientific term for the irrational fear of an empty glass. Is it A, xenosilicophobia, B, crystallophobia, C, nellophobia, D, spasmonegaliophobia? The answer is A, xenosilicophobia. Keep that glass full.
Thanks for watching the Consumers Beverages Beer Show. We'll see you next time.